Hi, I'm Rusty Komori, and this is Beyond the Lines on ThinkTech Hawaii. I was the head coach of the Punahou boys varsity tennis team for 22 years, and we were fortunate to win 22 consecutive state championships. My books, Beyond the Lines and Beyond the Game, are about leadership, success, and creating a superior culture of excellence, which is what this show is all about. My special guest today is a global business expert who has traveled the world for more than 30 years, helping countless people and businesses become more successful. He is John Spence, and today we are going beyond leadership. Hey, John, welcome to Beyond the Lines.
Thank you, Rusty. I'm completely honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Now, I know you're in Florida and you're living in Florida, and I want to know, John, what kind of sports did you play growing up?
Growing up, I played football, baseball, believe it or not, basketball. My coach made me do that just to stay in shape. My vertical leap is about 1 inch. College, I played rugby, and actually, we'll go right to a parallel with your books because I read them and I loved them. My leadership journey actually started in high school football. My nickname was the Bear. My coach looked at me and said, "When you get older, you're going to be as big as a bear." Unfortunately, I never grew taller, just wider. But my senior year, he said, "We're going to make you captain of the defense." And being the size I am and was back then, I wasn't usually very close to the front on laps or sprints or anything else like that. And he said, "You're going to be the captain, but you have to come in the top five in all sprints and all laps." And I thought, I've never done that in my entire in anything. And the next day, came in number three, started coming in top five every time. And I realized I had it in me all along, but it took the coach to give me that level of responsibility and leadership on the team to make me better than I actually was.
Oh, that's great hearing the impact the coach had on you. And you and your wife Sheila have been married for 20 years now. And of the many great things about Sheila, what's the number one biggest thing that you admire about her?
Well, besides just being the one I love and my partner, is she studies as hard as I do. She brings, I spend a lot of time trying to hone my craft. She will bring me new ideas, new information, recommendations that I hadn't even seen as much as I read and study. So she's always two steps ahead of me, not just in running our business, but in helping me be good at what I do.
No, that's good to hear. And I enjoyed talking with her a few weeks ago. And John, you were the owner or CEO of six different companies. And then you started your own johnspence.com to really help all people and all companies. What inspired you to do that?
Um, I started out very early in my career, so I got a lot of experience while I was young. And what I really learned was is business isn't as hard as it looks. Did you ever, just like tennis? There are some fundamentals. And if you don't nail those fundamentals, it is impossible to get ahead and achieve at a high level. So I went out, I just wanted to help people understand if we can just get these five or six things right, we can take your business to a whole nother level and you can take better care of your people.
So, John, I mean, you have such a fascinating story. I mean, just throughout these decades, and you have so much wisdom, and you've done numerous TED Talks, and I love your TED Talks. And I want to ask you, John, what's the most important thing you learned in life?
As you said, this comes from one of my TED Talks, and it's pretty straightforward. And again, there are so many parallels between what I do and what you've written in your books. Is you become what you focus on and like the people you spend time with. Whatever you read, whatever you study, whatever you learn, whatever you fill your mind with, and whoever you choose to spend your time with will directly determine what your life will look like a decade from now.
And so, in college, did were you always a good student?
No, I failed out of college on the first try. Bad enough, but I failed out of the University of Miami in Miami, Florida, where my father was on the board of directors and a wing of the law school was named after my family. So you've got to really mess up badly to get kicked out of a university where there's a building named after your family. So I had to completely restart my college career. And it was really, that was a major turning point of my life when I was used to being very successful in high school and sports and all those sort of things. And then when I was told I wasn't good enough to go to the University of Florida, I remember sitting down on the stairs and crying and then saying, "I'm going to fix this." And I won't drag you through the entire story, but I went to a junior college. Eventually got admitted to the University of Florida and graduated number 3 in the country in my major. And it was one of those ideas of I surrounded myself with A students of integrity and honesty that we all wanted to do well. And we focused on helping each other. And it was a winning combination.
No, I love hearing. I mean, it's so interesting, how you went from one type of student, or being a student in I think you had like a 1.6 GPA, and then you ended up turning it completely around to the far side of the spectrum. What was the one big turning point that caused that to happen?
Was actually a college professor, and I'm going to keep a little. Basically, a coach, my coach in college, who's now still one of my closest friends, 33 years later, who pulled me aside and said, "Judd, it's kind of like the fundamentals of business." He said, "There's only 3 things it takes to be successful in college: read the books, which I wasn't doing until then. I could read, but I wasn't reading, which is the same as not being able to read. Ask for help, which is the second most important thing I've ever learned, and then he said, start study groups." And it's kind of creates putting an excellent team around yourself. And everything became easier for me because I had 5 friends helping me. And the 6 of us together walked from our college at the University of Florida, numbers 1 through 6.
Oh, that's very cool. Man, that's the impact that teachers and coaches have. And John, you have been an author of 5 books, and you co-authored several others. And one of your biggest, most popular books is the title Awesomely Simple. Why did you write that book?
I've built my entire career, Rusty, on finding patterns. You'll notice that I'm in one of my libraries. I read about 100 to 120 business books a year, and I have every year since 1989. And I've understood that one of the key things in any tennis, strategy, business, whatever it might be, is well, I'll go through the 4. You probably know these better than I do. The Handbook of Expertise and Expert Performance. First one is passion. You got to love what you do. It's pretty straightforward. You're not going to become best in the world at what you do if you don't love it. The next one is practice, but it's a special kind of practice, which is deliberate practice, which means you have a coach or a trainer or a colleague, but someone pushing you to get better from the outside watching you. The third one is patience, and that's, according to Malcolm Gladwell and others, about 10 years or 10,000 hours to become among the best in the world. And I'm sure you're drawing lines right now with world-class tennis players and everything. But to me, that leads to the fourth and final one, which is pattern recognition. And that book was based on me looking at hundreds of companies and reading thousands of books and boiling it down to what I saw as the thread, the pattern that ran through all of them, which I see as the fundamentals of running a really great organization.
Oh, I love hearing those P's. And John, my books, you have both of my books. What stood
Got to
out
show
to
that you
you?
got
What
them right
stood out
here.
to you in
Yeah.
it? Hey, there it is.
Your question again was? I'm sorry, I was laughing while you were asking a great question.
Well, what stood out to you in my books?
The really the thing, and it's so rare. I've had conversations with a couple of my clients. I had one today with the CEO of a $1.6 billion company. Is the idea of excellence and creating people that are dedicated to excellence and we're willing to take responsibility and accountability. Unfortunately, an awful lot of people on the face of the earth are not that excited about excellence. And what I loved was the story after story and your clear tools and ideas about how to build great teams, how to be a great coach, and specifically how to pursue and achieve excellence. Years ago, when I ran one of my companies, somebody came in and said, "These people around here are over dedicated. This is like a cult." And I went, "Yeah, it's a cult of excellence. You have a problem with that?" So I saw that theme running through everything you did. And I love the fact that you've got, the big misses, the 4 Ps. Same as me. I like acronyms and a couple easy tools and things to remember. You absolutely nailed it on those things.
Oh, it makes me feel I feel so honored that you like the books. And let's talk more about, establishing that superior culture of excellence. Because that's really what I've been doing, trying to help, people and businesses. And I know you're doing the same. What are what are some of the big key things for people and businesses to go from a great level of excellence to a superior culture of excellence?
And I'd gonna love to hear your comments when I get the first thing starts with people. If you can't run a world class organization or have a world class championship team without championship people. The next one is passion, or what I might call purpose. And again, that's not about winning; it's about making an impact. Winning is part of the process, but that's not the end goal per se. So you've got to have that clear vision. Another one that I think is really big is setting very high expectations, very clear but challenging expectations, and then having a high level of discipline and accountability around those expectations. And then, of course, the one that I see that's a big challenge too is communications. You got to have a lot of open, honest, transparent, robust communication that builds trust so that people know that when you're coaching them or guiding them or helping them, you always have their best interests at heart.
Yeah, I totally believe in honest feedback and open communication going both ways. I mean, sometimes some leaders who are not the best leaders, they seem to be more dictators, right?
Yeah, we for years we saw a lot of command and control. As I used to say, when my boss said jump, it was how high, start, and how many times. Then the pendulum swung for a while in the middle of my career over to leadership by spreadsheet. Everything was a number. People were just head count. There was no emotion to it. Now, very pleased to know this is it's moved back into basically what's called servant leadership, where instead of the leader being at the top of the pyramid and telling everybody what to do, they're at the base saying, "What can I do to help you?" So luckily, the command and control that we used to see is fading away into a more team-oriented uh, sort of an organization where leaders much are like coaches. They're to support and help people do their best. As I read one the other day I saw a quote by the CEO of WD-40. It said, "My job here is to help make sure everybody gets an A plus."
I love hearing that. John, what's a story that you can share about, making an impact and really taking, someone or a company from good to great?
Well, most of the time, the thing that I look at is culture. And when I was the CEO of one of the Rockefeller Foundations when I was 26, and I ran that for a few years, and I left to be basically a stand-in CEO for a couple of years. If an organization was struggling or had trouble, or the CEO had quit or been fired, I was sort of parachuted in there to hold them together. And I remember one of the organizations was actually a private island in the Bahamas. It was a research facility. It was in total disarray. When I got there, they said, "John, what's your vision?" I said, "I don't have a vision. I'll only be here for 6 months. The new director will have a vision, but what I have a vision of is we're going to make this the best culture you've ever worked in. We're going to have fun. We're going to pursue excellence. We're going to treat each other with dignity and respect. And we're going to put out the best work that each of us has ever put out in our lives. And that way, when the new CEO gets here, he'll have a world-class team, and whatever his or her vision might be, it'll be easy to follow it because you're already doing great." And that was probably one of the organizations I was the most proud of working with, because it was that culture turnaround that prepared the organization for success going forward.
Oh, wow. And John, all of us, we've experienced adversities in our lives, and some people, experience deeper levels of adversity. But what's a big adversity or a big challenge that you dealt with in your life, and how did you overcome that?
Well, the biggest challenge for me was failing out of college, because I had a self-image up until that point that I succeeded at everything. I was a captain of the football team, blah 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 blah, and I thought, life will be easy. And then when I hit rock bottom there, and by the way, I got disowned by my family too, so I was cut off from my family on my own. Had to put myself through college after growing up in a fairly wealthy family of very successful people. That was a big challenge to turn that around. Then I'd say the other thing was, for most of my career, you're going to get a kick out of this, probably happened to you too. I was too young to be successful. You're 26, you can't run this organization. You're 33, you're too young. Now at 57, I'm too old. And I just want to find out, what was the one day I was the right age? You know, just right, like Goldilocks porridge. So age had been early in my career was a huge challenge. But you know what I learned? It's much, I'm sure you and I are aligned on this, is be so good they can't ignore you. Be so well prepared, do your homework, be disciplined, be accountable. And people can judge me by my age, but I would prefer they judge me by the outcome of my work and the work of our team.
I love hearing your nuggets of wisdom there, and you have a lot of nuggets of wisdom, John. And I want to know, John, when you're doing coaching of CEOs or other executives, what are some of the things that you focus on?
Well, I'm not what you would call a normal executive coach. I'm what I call a business acumen coach. And what I do is I sit down with the CEO and we identify together what she wants to learn. Where's an area, let's say strategic thinking. And then and again, this won't surprise you looking behind me, I assign reading. I say we're going to read an article or watch, a video with you or something like that. And then we're going to take that subject and dig down in it until you can teach it back to me. And I mentioned, I think it was a little earlier or before we got on camera, that it's interesting to me that I work with CEOs that are very, very, very successful and still suffer from imposter syndrome, thinking that they got there by fate or good luck or good timing and can't believe that they've achieved such a high level of success because of their own work. So partially my work a lot of times is just coaching them to help them get some level of self-confidence and self-efficacy, that they actually do know a lot about what they're doing, but there's still a ton of room to improve.
Oh, that's good. When I've been doing a lot of guest speaking and leadership coaching for executives as well, and when I meet with a lot of these CEOs, and I'm hearing their challenges and how they want me to help them, I often end up saying, there's a gigantic difference between being a great person and being a great leader. And
Yes.
they're like, that's where you come in to help, because it's all about building relationships. And John, what are your thoughts about empathy, having empathy? Because the greatest leaders have empathy for their team members and they really care about the growth of each individual to really contribute to the team growth. What are your thoughts about the importance of personal growth and professional growth?
Well, there's a couple of things I could say. The first, I think everyone knows, the phrase "leaders are readers." But and I really look at three things it takes to be successful as a leader going forward in the future, and they're all quotients. IQ, which is not, and I don't look at the number. I'm speaking more here about competence. Are you constantly learning, growing, setting an example, creating a learning organization? Your EQ, your emotional quotient, which is empathy, your ability to make genuine connections with other people. And that's all around self awareness, self regulation, and true empathy for others. And we've now found out that EQ, empathy, is about 5 times more important than IQ. As long as you've got a base level of competence, if you're really smart, you can't work well with other people, you can't be a leader. And then the last one is AQ, which is your adaptability or agility quotient, which means you have to learn really fast. Technology's moving at a fast pace. It's only going to increase. So you've got to be quick, nimble, adaptable, agile. And that all comes from being curious, learning, flexible, and willing to try new things and sometimes fail.
Wow. EQ is where it's at, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Now, John, what's the difference between good customer service and giving superior customer service?
And for the business people that are watching your show, this will help a lot. There's a thing that I call moments of truth. And I won't take you through the whole thing, but out of all the interactions you have with a customer, it always boils down to 3 or 4 or 5 that are make or break. In a restaurant, good quality food, good service, reasonable prices, clean. So if someone wants to go there and have a great experience, I need to understand what those handful of moments of truth are, and then train and prepare and study so that I can dazzle and wow and excite my customers by meeting and exceeding their expectations at a lot of levels, but absolutely nailing every single time the moments of truth. And the best way to understand that is ask your customers, what would make you happy? How would you define outstanding service? And take that and find out how to go just a little bit better than that.
I like hearing that. And John, with your experience, for all these years, why is it that certain businesses fail?
Uh, we're going to get a little redundant here. It's that they don't have high quality people. They have no levels of accountability. It's actually the single biggest issue I see in organizations around the world is a lack of disciplined execution or accountability. And they also fail because they focus on the wrong things. They focus on their competition. They focus only on their bottom line, not on investing in people and investing in getting closer to their customers. So it's some basic things. One of my key ones is whoever owns the voice of the customer owns the marketplace. 90% of businesses do not listen at all or very, very poorly to their customer. Hard to be successful if you don't know what your customer wants.
No, I love hearing your insights, John. And you know, winning a championship or winning a repeat championship or being number one in business, for 1 or 2 or 3 years, I mean, that's really difficult to do. What are some keys to sustaining success for the long term?
Um, this is interesting. I was asked by a group, IBM, to do a speech on the essence of excellence for about 1,600 of their people. So I'll give you what I came up with. Three keys: F, D, and A. The F stands for focus. You've got to have a very clear vision of what excellence looks like, what success looks like, what you're trying to achieve, your vision, and then be insanely, intensely focused on that vision. D stands for discipline. A lot of people talk about it. They write plans. It's exciting and interesting, but very few people have the discipline to get up every day and do the hard work and pay the price to achieve excellence. And then the last one is the amount of action you apply determines the amount of results you get. Not very focused, a little bit of discipline, not a lot of action, mediocrity. Tremendous focus on a clear vision, disciplined execution, and lots of action equals excellence.
So let's expand more about that focus right there, because for me, I've always known that the brain controls the body, and really having the right thoughts. I mean, having the right mindset really gets you, focused on, here and now, the present focus. I mean, you can be thinking what you want to accomplish, but it's the little things that you do daily that really get you one step closer to your goals. What are your thoughts about mindset?
Uh, a couple of things. A mindset, as you said, determines everything else. You can take a great situation and make it terrible with the wrong mindset and create your own failure. You can take a very difficult situation and turn it around if you've got the right mindset. And I'm gonna speak for a minute to what's going on right now with the pandemic and the struggles. And there's two things I've been telling the people I'm coaching. Number one is it's not your fault. A lot of people were running great companies. They had very happy employees, extremely excited customers. They had running and all of a sudden the whole thing blew up, and they take full, responsibility for that. And I said, you were doing a great job. Don't beat yourself up. It's going to be okay. And then the other thing is, again, I'm talking about the pandemic specifically right now, is figure out the stuff in your life you can control, impact, and influence, and take massive control of that. Figure out the things in your life that you cannot control. The pandemic, the weather, taxes, the economy, on and on and on. Let go of all of that. I think one of the best things of mindset is focusing on the ways that you can improve and be better and help yourself and help others, and not worry about the past or the future or things that you cannot control.
No, I totally agree with you, John. And I think that COVID, I mean, as bad as the pandemic was and is, it seems like there's that light at the end of the tunnel. But a lot of the successful leaders, they seem to be able to adapt and adjust to really navigate their way to keep their teams successful. And I feel like this COVID situation, and one positive is it's really a good reset for a lot of people who were feeling maybe complacent, and it kind of gets them out of their comfort zone to want to do something better, perhaps with their life personally and professionally. What are your thoughts about that?
I've seen several people being very reflective about making life changes now that they've had a little bit more time to think about it and experienced a new way of working and interacting with people. It's very, very clear to me we are not going back to the way we used to work. Things are going to change, and they're going to change dramatically and continue to change. The other thing is in the early parts of the pandemic, it required a tremendous amount of decisiveness. And many of my clients told me that decisions that would normally take weeks or months were done in minutes. and that new level of decisiveness and effectiveness has now carried through a lot in their organization. And they've said, here's meetings we don't need to have, here's things we don't need to do, here's decisions that other people can make more quickly. And I think that's also freed people up to focus on the areas they're really good, and enjoy their work more, and look at how they can shape their life and their work going forward in a completely different way. As you said, adjust, adapt, change, be resilient to a new way of working and a new way of living.
John, you and I both know that the most successful leaders have courage to make difficult decisions, and they know that they're not going to make everybody happy, but everyone can respect the leader if they understand why they made that decision. So, again, communication is so important if the leader can not just make a decision, but to make a decision and explain why, to communicate the reasoning behind that. What are your thoughts?
Well, communication is always a problem in every organization, whether you have 2 people or 200,000. And it's on, well, the big thing I'm seeing right now, and I've seen for years, is an idea called psychological safety. And it's the idea you have to create an environment where people feel very comfortable raising issues, concerns, discussing problems, admitting mistakes, speaking with candor. And I think when a leader can create an environment like that and explain the why, and people can, give pushback or feedback or disagree, but at the end, we're all aligned together, as you've done with your teams. We're all on the same team here. We're all working to achieve the same goals. And as your leader, this is the direction I think we need to go. And if you've created enough trust, Rusty, you know this better than I do, and you've empowered your team in the past, you've helped them, you've given them support, training, resources, and at some point you say, I need you to trust me and do this, they will follow you unquestioned and say, he's always had my back or she's always had my back. I'm happy to do whatever they need me to do.
Yeah, you're totally right. And John, I want to ask you one more thing before we wrap up. How do you define leadership?
Oh, thank you. Many people have asked me this. I have a unique definition for myself. A leader must be a living example of what they hope their people will one day become. And that means that leadership is not easy. And as I said earlier, like my coach in high school, it forced me to be better than I actually was.
Oh, I love that, John. That's a perfect definition. That is the best definition of leadership I've ever heard. And John, you are someone that definitely goes beyond the lines, and I really want to thank you for taking time to be on the show today.
Rusty, I can't thank you enough. Tremendous honor to spend time with you. And again, congratulations on 2 fantastic books.
Thank you, John. And thank you for watching Beyond the Lines on ThinkTech Hawaii. For more information, please visit rustykomori.com, and my books are available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I hope that John and I will inspire you to create your own superior culture of excellence and to find your greatness and help others find theirs. Aloha.